Welcome, Inanna Pilgrims. Now it's time to take a little trip to the underworld. We've been referencing how Inanna is getting ready to go to the underworld to answer her call. And tonight I wanted to explain to you a little bit more about what the underworld meant to Sumerians and what it means metaphorically for you. So, in ancient Sumer, the underworld was called the Kur. It was a place of death, funerary rites. But in mythological terms, we want to think of the underworld as the netherworld, our inner world. But maybe the best way to think of it is your unlived life. And in the story of Inanna, at the beginning, Inanna has a sister whose name is Ereshkigal. And Ereshkigal agrees to go to the underworld, and she becomes queen of that realm, queen of the earth, while Inanna becomes queen of heaven and a warrior and the priestess of the temples. And so one is in the light, Inanna, and the other part of her is unlived. It's unseen, forgotten, abandoned. It's the part of all of our lives that we've learned to not express, to not say, things we shouldn't wear, things we shouldn't do, things we shouldn't feel or express that we feel. Anything we're ashamed of or afraid of, anything that we think is a waste of time or is fickle or foolish or sinful or irresponsible, selfish, all that, all of the rest of that. We send that to our underworld where, to be sure that it's unlived, we put it out of mind, out of sight. So we can survive in the upper world with the persona that we think we should have. And when we think about who is it that calls Inanna on this great journey, where did this call come from? We know it came from the great below. So probably it came from the underworld, huh? And if the caller and the call are one, then maybe we could think of that call coming from the unlived part of our life that we have forgotten about, we have ignored, we have buried. And yet to be whole, maybe to complete the life, the Dharma we took birth for, there's something we need to do or say or feel. So this is the call. The call is to become whole and to love the parts of ourselves we can't love. We've been conditioned not to love, or that we're afraid if we express it, we won't be loved. So when Inanna answers the call, you'll soon learn. Inanna's going to come face to face with a part of herself that she's been afraid to see, to express, to love, to others to even see. And this can be a great shock and also a great awakening. And here in our story, it's Queen Ereshkigal, Inanna's sister, who agrees to rule the underworld, while Inanna agrees to rule the upper world. And when Queen Ereshkigal rules the underworld, she's taken on the May of the underworld, the powers of the underworld. She wears no clothes. She has no relationships. She eats clay and drinks dirty water. And she keeps calling to Inanna, hey, you forgot about me. So I'd like to have you think about this and by giving you a story about my own life. I had wanted to be an artist when I was a young person, but of course was told there was no future in that. So my life took another path into midwifery, and then I became a mother and householder, and was always turning my attention to these other very worthwhile important parts of my life. But in order to do that, I didn't have the time or the space to be an artist. Art is messy. So I put art making in my underworld. I kind of forgot about it. And then my call came when my mother died, and my sisters were in the basement clearing out her stuff at her house, and they found some paints. And they said, "Hey, you like to draw. Why don't you take these paints?" So right away, I found some canvas paper, and I painted my mother's dying and her funeral. And then I kept painting in order to use up the paints. And by the time I had done that, I had become an artist, a painter. So, but we put things in the underworld when we don't have time, or we don't think we're good enough, or we don't think it's worthy, or financially viable, or any number of reasons. And when the call comes to bring that forth, we need to do that. And if we don't do that, there's a risk that not doing it will make a part of us inside wail, long for, become bitter and angry. You know, Ereshkigal in the underworld was patient for a while, calling to Inanna, and then she really got pissed. And so this is one reason we fall out of love with life, is that we're not living a part of it that's calling to us to be lived. So if this idea speaks to you, I would like you to spend some time on your Inanna pilgrimage. What better time to do it than right now during the COVID quarantine, the pandemic, when when the biggest reason we don't answer some of our calls is because we feel we don't have the time. And here we may have time, time to introspect, to try something out. Now, this may not have to be a big deal for you. So what I want you to do is to tune into the call that's coming from your underbelly, from something unlived. And by the way, I'd like to love. So what I want you to do is to tune into the call that's coming from your underbelly, from something unlived. And by the way, I'd like to suggest that in my underworld anyway, I once discovered this when I was teaching in England, um, that there isn't just one Ereshkigal that I relegated to my underworld, one part of me that's unlived. I saw in this vision that there were lots of Ereshkigals down there, all laying on the ground, naked and writhing and eating dirt and drinking clay water and calling to me. They would like to be expressed. You see, and so when you take a visit into your underworld, look around and sort of name all the unlived part of yourselves that maybe have been calling to you. And now, during the COVID pandemic and a little more time for introspection and solitude, um, and, you can tune into those calls. You can tune into those parts. And then I'd like you to choose one. You could say, "Hey, you over there in the corner, Ereshkigal," call her by name, whatever this is, and bring her forth and say, "We're going to go up into the light, and for one day, I'm going to try you on." And think about the wholeness of this expression. How does this expression move, talk? How does it feel? How does it express what it feels without inhibition? What does it wear that might be different from what you normally wear every day? What does it like to eat, if that's part of its persona? And I want you to fully express it and notice that whatever reason you thought you couldn't and shouldn't express this part, that by doing it, not only does the world go on, but the people around you may notice or may not notice, but probably they won't fracture your relationships. But one of the most important things is that once you've lived the thing you've believed you shouldn't love, yeah, once you've lived the thing you've believed you shouldn't live because you wouldn't be lovable or worthy or approved of, whatever it was, and you do this thing and you're still okay, you're still accepted, you're still, uh, you're still you. With you also you become less afraid of this thing, and you also notice that when people around you live this thing that you've tried not to live, that you're going to understand them and accept them and be less judgmental of them, because for one day of your life you got to try that on and feel it. It makes you a more whole person to allow this um, part of the Inanna myth to come alive in you. So take a look, and we'll see you on the Sunday call, and you can tell us about the Ereshkigal you discovered and expressed and what happened for you. Good night.